Hey everyone, you're listening to Fantasy Uptick. I'm Jeremiah Blue, and today we're going to be talking about AJ Green, a guy that I'm loving in all formats. Seem to get him around the 6th round, going about receiver 27. So let's jump right in. So there's a lot of reasons why I like AJ Green this year, going at the spot that he's going at. First of all, like I said before, he's going at wide receiver 27. Last year in 2019, he was going at wide receiver 26, and that was with him coming in with an injury and us expecting him to miss time. A different quarterback, Andy Dalton versus Joe Burrow, whatever you expect there, it should at the very minimum be a wash for most people. A worse offensive line because their first round draft pick, Jonah Williams, had already been hurt. And again, going one spot higher than he's going this year when essentially it's a contract year because he's going to be franchised. He didn't play any football last year, so he was basically healthy. And there's a lot of talk whether or not he could have been able to play had they been a playoff team. So I don't think that there's going to be any holdover from the injury going into this season. Yes, he's 32, but historically he's been just amazing. Career-wise, he averages over 80 yards per game, so 80.2 yards per game. If we just look at 2019, only 5 receivers had more per game in 2019. This is 80 yards over his entire career. He's averaged 80 yards per game. So if he can just do that again, which is his career average or just a little bit less, he's going to be a wide receiver 1 for you, and you're getting him in the 6th round of a 12-team draft, which is where I seem to be getting him, which is outside of the top 60 players overall. Granted, wide receiver number 27, so he's obviously going to be drafted in all leagues. If we look at AJ Green in 2018, right, that's the real last year that we can kind of take a sample size. Andy Dalton was on pace for 4,204 yards in the first 8 games that AJ Green was playing. His numbers dropped off dramatically once AJ Green got hurt, but assuming that Joe Burrow can come in with all the weapons and average around 4,200 yards, which is within the realm of possibility due to the fact that we're expecting the Bengals defense to be one of the worst defenses that AJ Green himself has ever played with, so they're going to be playing from behind a lot. They're in a division that's going to score a lot of points with all the Browns, the Baltimore Ravens, and the Pittsburgh Steelers projecting to be good offenses. So the Bengals should be playing from behind a lot, which is going to lead to passing yards. So I could totally see Joe Burrow come up with 4,204 yards. AJ Green in that season with Andy Dalton on pace for those kind of numbers in that 8 games was on pace himself for 1,374, 90 receptions, 152 targets, and 12 touchdowns. Again, wide receiver 1 numbers if he would have maintained that 2018 pace that season if he'd have played all 16 games, right? To kind of drive home the point, in 2017, and the Bengals quarterback only put up 3,386 yards, 25 touchdowns. I'm really just going back to, I want players, when I'm talking about receivers, a high percentage of the receiving share, right? So in 2017, AJ Green accounted for 28.4% of the targets, 24.7% of the receptions, 31.8% of the yards, and then 32% of the touchdowns, right? So again, even in a year where the Bengals were one of the worst passing teams in football, because 3,386 yards is really on pace for a very, very bad season, he still managed to get 145 targets, 75 receptions, 178 yards, and 8 touchdowns. So again, even in that season where they're not putting up a lot of yards, he still was one of the top targets out there. And again, the reason I'm wanting to drive home the point of AJ Green specifically is because he's going in the 6th round, and he's one of the few people in this range that has that true wide receiver 1 upside. Like, if we're talking about the difference between Andy Dalton and Joe Burrow, and you can tell me in the comments if you think that from year 1, is Joe Burrow going to be better statistically than Andy Dalton was during his time in Cincinnati? You can argue against that. You could say, hey, rookies don't usually come in and throw for 4,200 yards, and you'd be right? That is a valid argument. But now he's probably going to come in and throw for 3,386 yards at least, assuming he plays all 16 games, which is what the Bengals did in 2017. And AJ Green's floor is still over 1,000 yards, assuming AJ Green plays. And remember, this is a contract year for AJ Green. And you're getting this guy so late in drafts, and he has that upside to be a number 1 receiver, a top 5, top 10 receiver in this league. Like I said, just if he averages per yards per game, his career average, which is 80.2, and his whole career he's played with Andy Dalton. So it's not like, well, there was a couple of years where he played with Peyton Manning and those numbers get skewed. No, he played with Andy Dalton his entire career, and he averaged 80 yards per game, essentially. If he does that again this year, and 2019 stats stay similar to what they were in 2020 stats stay similar to what they were in 2019, he would finish just in the yards per game as the number 6 wide receiver in football. So again, and if he played all 16 games, he'd be even higher than that, because not everybody that had 80, like Devontae Adams was on that list, and Devontae Adams didn't play 16 games. So again, this is elite wide receiver 1 stats that is basically his career. The reason people have forgotten about AJ Green is he hasn't played in over a year and a half. So we're talking about a guy that is just basically on a what you've done for me lately bad boy list. So he hasn't done anything for anybody lately, so he's on that list, and people have forgotten just how elite AJ Green can be. And the players that he's going with, none of those guys really have the kind of upside that AJ Green has. So if you're like me and you're waiting for receiver this year, because I am taking receiver pretty late, really round 5 and 6 is about as early as I go receiver, because I'm trying to go heavy running backs, and I try to get one of the better tight ends. And, and it changes. If one of the elite guys fall to me in the 3rd round or 2nd round, I'm definitely going to draft them if I don't like the running backs that are available at that spot. But for the most part, either in the 6th round is where I'm looking to get my either number 2 or number 1 wide receiver. Assuming the draft falls the way I like the draft to fall to me, I'm typically going number 1 receiver in round 6. And a guy like AJ Green can really boost my team. This is a guy that's that really could make teams champions because of the kind of upside you're getting in the 6th round. So to wrap up, even in Dynasty, I want AJ Green, because right now his value is just so low. And that's what you do when you're talking about Dynasty leagues, any kind of leagues in particular, but you want to trade for people that their stock is low. So what could you end up trading for AJ Green? How low is the AJ Green guy out there? Put out a filler, because truthfully, he might be super low, and AJ Green can help you win this year, because a lot of people in Dynasty leagues, they look at a 32-year-old and they're like, I got to move on. Everybody's so bent up on rebuilding that they forget that this year counts, and they're going to have to try to win this year as well. So again, AJ Green, contract year. Next year, I assume he's going to get a big contract. The Bengals do believe in him, because they're offering him the franchise tag, which is a lot of money for a guy that the way the world is valuing him, you would never offer that kind of money for even a 1-year guy if he's being valued as like the 27th best receiver in football. The Bengals think he's one of the best receivers in football. So again, this is a guy that if he has a huge year, he's gonna get to handpick where he goes, or the Bengals are going to give him a lot of money, and he's going to have a decent career for the next three years. I can still see AJ Green being solid. So again, just a guy that I would trade for in Dynasty leagues. We can discuss in the comments who would be a good person to offer up for AJ Green. And then remember that this is a team that's getting better. The offensive line should be improved. It's still going to be one of the worst offensive lines in football, but Jonah Williams being added there, Joe Burrow being there, I think that there's some real potential for AJ Green to really blow up. But that's it for my AJ Green analysis. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think that AJ Green is done? Is he just too old to really get back to that prime level? Or do you think this is a great opportunity to buy low on AJ Green? Remember to like and subscribe. We're a growing channel, obviously. There's not too many subscribers on our list, so every subscriber that we get matters. If you follow us on social media, we're very good at responding to any questions you have and really just having a dialogue with our fans. So thanks again for watching. We really appreciate it. Till next time, see ya!